This style of talk is going to be a little bit different for me. It's just pretty much going to be a slideshow, and then I'm going to have a pre-written script that covers everything instead of everyone reading off the screen all the time. So there's very minimal text in this. So the Ankh. The Ankh is something that is a symbol we have all seen. You'll find it on jewelry, tattoos, book covers, and in all corners of pop culture. The Theosophists, little do people know, were the first big group to start to use the Ankh symbol. Blavatsky references it many times. And of course, a lot of New Age movements have taken it as a part of their thing. These images here I've just included. It's used in pop culture, it's used as a fashion statement, which is completely fine. It just shows how embedded in culture it is. And what's fascinating about it being embedded in culture is that not too much meaning is known about the Ankh. People start to create meaning of the Ankh. As you can see that I've included below, you have the female and male, this idea that is a symbol of the female and the male combined, or that it's, as you can see, the sunset and sunrise and stuff like that. I strongly disagree with this, and I'll show you why it's almost completely debunkable. Perhaps the allure of the Ankh precisely lies in the mystery of it. We're attracted to what we don't know about it. It seems to mean something and to depict something, and yet what that something is remains obscure. There's no clear explanation of what the Ankh is, so all we're left with is the common translation of life. This is what people know the Ankh to be about, is just life. And this is believed due to many reasons, and it is true in part, as we'll see, but it's much more complex. But we don't know what the Ankh is. And when I say that, what I'm saying is we know that it might it might represent life, but what the Ankh actually is and why it represents life is completely unknown to us. There's nothing in the world that we can point to and be like, that is an Ankh. So it's quite a mystery. There's very few hieroglyphs that have this enigma behind it about what it even is. So if you take, for example, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail or biting its own tail, the symbol kind of explains itself. The serpent is a creature of danger, death, and chaos, and it is invoking that chaos upon itself, as chaos does. There's infinite readings you can get from it about how life is a circular or cyclical in nature or whatever you might attach to it. But the meaning is attached to the sign. So there's a difference between a sign and a symbol. A sign is just the depiction, and the symbol is all the meaning behind it. But the sign and symbol have to overlap. Another example, familiar, and it's in the emblem and seal of the Theosophical Society, is the Seal of Solomon or the Star of David. This too, the meaning of it is embedded in the sign. It's not, of course, there's varying interpretations, but union of opposites, as above, so below, it's seen there in the imagery. So this is another example of something that's easy to interpret to a degree. So these two form the first part of the Theosophical Society logo, our first major component. And of course, there's other things embedded in it. But the Ankh is much less forgiving in its interpretation. Another theory, so what I was going into here was people try and find and ascribe meanings onto the Ankh due to the fact that it isn't obvious what it actually is depicting. So another theory about what the Ankh is that it's a mirror. So the reason why you'll see this is the symbol that I used in my poster. The reason why they think this is because they found this Ankh mirror in the tomb of Tutankhamun. And that might seem like a very compelling kind of thing. There it is. That's what it is. But the issue is again, how does a mirror represent life? And when we look closer at this kind of situation, it's much more likely that the Egyptians too made the same kind of connection that we just did, that a hand mirror looks like an Ankh. That doesn't mean that the Ankh itself is a hand mirror. It just means that they might have made the same connection and fashioned a mirror into the shape of an Ankh. So it's not really a good argument that the Ankh is a mirror. And a very big reason why we can discount this is because the Ankh has been seen grabbed from within the loop, indicating that there isn't a glass panel there. And another good reason as well is that the Ankh has been shown being placed up to people's face, mouth, or nose. I used to think it was mouth, but it's actually the nose. So this isn't why would you put a mirror up to someone's face? Not like that. Obviously, you look into it, but you wouldn't put it up to someone's nose. So, digging into it, the aim of today is that we'll explore the complicated symbolism of the Ankh. We'll survey the many theories that attempt to explain the gap between what the Ankh shows and what it is supposedly to mean. To do this, we will turn to Egyptologists, to Sumerian art, to the study of hieroglyphs, hoping at the very least to separate the likely from the merely fanciful. So the Ankh in its oldest form is not a circle, as you see here, and as we explored with the Mercury symbol for Mercury, but it's an upside down, it's in particular an upside down droplet shape top. Is very important because people draw Ankhs as circle, but when you look at the Egyptian hieroglyphs, they're almost never perfect circles. This is important because it looks as if gravity is acting upon it, which might indicate what it might be. Some people theorize that it's a rope of some sort and it's being pulled taut, right? And for this reason, if it is a rope at the top of the Ankh, then the bottom is a tau or a T. And this is tau is rife with symbolism. It's a very old symbol. It's one of the oldest letters in any language. It's believed to be connected, if I've got it here, to the bull, and it split. The bull became the symbol for Tau. That's why it's Taurus, T-A-U is Taurus, Tau, bull. And it also became the letter for A. And some have theorized this is why the Ankh begins with A, right? But this is a hypothesis, is that it's a representation of the Tau, which is it's so deep we would spend another hour to go into the Tau symbolism and how ancient that goes. There's the bull. And as you can see, people theorize that the bull has that T-shaped structure, or the one on the right, the ears of the bull form the crossbar, the nose of the bull form the vertical structure, and then the what's it called? Horns of the bull form the loop. And this is some theory that people stand behind.
So, so the bull being Hathor, right?
Yes. So Hathor's very connected to Ankh as well. But the bull isn't just Hathor. The bull is so much more. Like, oh, for example, not a bull, but a cow. The cow in the sky is believed that the whole Milky Way is a cow. And that's why it's called the Milky Way, because of milk, the milk that is born from a cow. Sounds ridiculous. It's absolutely the case. It's believed to be the great bull of Nun or Nut. I think it's Nun. Good call out there with Hathor. Is there a little bit you want to share on Hathor?
Not at the moment. We'll wait till you get some other conclusions.
Yes. So, Ankh in its behavior is offered to kings, held by gods, given to pharaohs and held by pharaohs, and it's carved into tomb walls. So it has some sacred or divine connotations along with it as well. Like we said, it was put up to someone's face. So this is what we have to work with, and then we're going to determine, well, what is it? So on to the next section, we're going to go into the official narrative on what the Ankh is, according to Egyptologists and archaeologists. So according to Egyptologists, the Ankh represents life or the force of life. In Egyptian art, it appears besides the was scepter and the Djed pillar. So that's a Djed pillar in the middle there, and then next to two Ankhs. And it is believed that the Djed pillar is represents stability of God or of the gods. What the scepter is the power of the gods, and the Ankh is the divine life of the gods. That's the three of them unified. You see that a lot. Ptah holds all three at the same time, and he's the grand father of the gods, right? The closest thing to Yahweh in the Egyptian tradition. Sometimes these three are drawn above the hieroglyph for all or everything, forming the phrase all life, all power, all stability. Now, what is the Ankh describing? The best running theory is the sandal strap hypothesis due to its shape. So it is believed that the Ankh represents a sandal strap. I found this in numerous sources. very like down the aisle, run of the mill Egyptology says the best theory is the sandal strap hypothesis, but it's by no means believed to be fact. It's just the best running theory. And it's a little ridiculous. The mental leap is that the shoe represents the walk of life. There's life embedded in the walking thing. And that's why the sandal strap is associated with the Ankh. This is ridiculous for a very, it sounds funny what I'm about to say, but it really matters. If you cut off someone's feet and they don't walk, they still have life. And this is important because what really represents life, what we're going to see later, is the breath. And it's the one thing throughout your whole life that you do constantly. You breathe when you sleep, even though you look dead. It's the one thing you are doing when you're unconscious. And it's the one thing you're definitely doing when you're conscious. When the breath is gone, life is gone. And so, therefore, the best symbol for life is the breath, or pneuma in Greek. So the idea of just feet, like people in the ancient world, people lost their feet all the time. So it's not a very enduring symbol of life, but just the working theory of Egyptologists at the moment. Now, this is another big thing. I want to dispel this idea of it being to do with like reproduction or reproductive life. So unlike the hieroglyph for the sun, bird, the water ripple, which depict the hieroglyphs depict what it is or what it looks like in the sign in the real world, the Ankh bears no resemblance to any easily identifiable thing. Even when people allege that the Ankh is a uterus and a phallus, I included the uterus here because the phallus is far too descriptive. That's the hieroglyphs, is that they're very descriptive, right? As you can see here, what I've included here, those are the hieroglyphs for the uterus. So there already is a hieroglyph for the uterus. There already is a hieroglyph for the phallus. So the need for the ankh as a symbol for the uterus and the phallus is redundant if there already exists hieroglyphs for it. And not to mention, the funny part is we saw earlier on, people always attribute the ovular part to the feminine, when in reality, the hieroglyph for the uterus is more closer to the bottom half of the ankh that people attribute to be the phallus. And so this theory is just not true, in my personal opinion. So another big thing is, what I've included here so terribly. I didn't know how to increase the size of it. When people want to overlap symbols, or when they wanted to overlap symbols or the hieroglyphs, they wouldn't create a new synthesis of two symbols. They would just whack them on top of each other. And so again, if it was just the phallus and the uterus, they would just whack them on top of each other. It's much easier to understand. They weren't really in the business of creating new hieroglyphs altogether. Another thing I want to talk about is semantic drift. So the cross was once an instrument of death, or it used to symbolize a horrific out crucifixion, a horrible thing is where we get the word excruciating today. And it meant death in the ancient world, but now it means so much more. So the same symbol can mean different things at different points. So there's also this other issue of with the Ankh, what did it actually once mean? Or maybe it meant something completely different. But the opposite is also true. If it does represent something, the the symbols or signs that represent that thing will also change. So you have two layers of uncertainty there. So just to go over it, we have the sandal strap hypothesis and the mirror hypothesis and the tau hypothesis. These are really popular ones. There's one I really want to go into, and it's going to be what I'm going into today. So I just want to dig into how I started. So I found all of this when I was studying the Great Earth Mother, the Divine Feminine. So I was tracing the very intricate and fascinatingly varied connection between the world's goddesses, which is profound, finding many goddesses share a root from a single feminine deity or hypothesized feminine deity long ago, of which the closest and most significant is Inanna, because she's very old and she encapsulates the very essence of the divine feminine. But there are still older. Sumerian goddess is the daughter of Enki in some writings, and the Lord of Wisdom. I call her personally the goddess with a thousand faces because she keeps popping up in so many different cultures, such that I feel you name me any goddess and I could draw a line back to Inanna. When cultures spread, existing deities take on properties of foreign deities, which may be greater. What also can happen is the same deity moves to another land and is worshipped in another land with different customs and is integrated into that culture. This results in name changes and feature changes and stuff like that. Like how I forgot which country, but Coca-Cola, to some Asian country, and they couldn't use the colors white and red because red meant something like death, like it was not a good symbol or color to have your drink around. So they changed it, I think, to yellow and black, if I'm not mistaken. This might have been a long time ago, and I don't know if they still do it, but it shows you how you have to adapt your symbol in the culture in which you're trying to, good word in, right? This is called syncretism. The famous of these is Hermes, sorry, and Mercury. All the same god, more or less. They're syncretized between them. So the Greeks looked at Thoth and went, "Yep, that's Hermes," and is just Hermes. So obviously the three are kind of linked together. Is why Hermes, by some, is believed to be called thrice great, Trismegistus. Some fascinating, lesser known connections. For example, Zeus and Jupiter are syncretized as the same god, obviously. If you consider why is there such a great difference in names, Zeus and Jupiter, the surface of it, they look very different, but they're actually not that different. The older deity prior to Zeus and Jupiter, called a hypothetical god called Deus Pitar. We know that's what he was called, Deus Pitar. Over time, due to language variation and such, Deus became Zeus, Zeus, and Deus Pitar became Jupiter. So Dio or Dio, Jupiter. And so Jupiter. And so we have Jupiter and Zeus, and they're actually even named after the same god, but it doesn't look like it on the surface. And so this is why you have the effect of the goddess with a thousand faces, right? Um, just want to draw attention to one thing to do with Inanna before I go any further. I just want to read out something. So this is text Enki and the World Order. And this is Enki speaking to Inanna. And the context of this is Enki is bestowing upon Inanna a gift. Now, in Sumerian tradition, gifts were these pockets of civilization called mez. And Inanna didn't have any, and she really wanted them. And she asked, "Why didn't you give me any?" And this is his response. Enki answered his daughter, "Holy Inanna, how have I disparaged you?" Because she's accusing him of disparaging him for not giving him a divine gift. Have I disparaged you? How can I enhance you? It's a song, so this is why it repeats. I made you speak as a woman with a pleasant voice. I made you go forth. I covered, presumably, you with a garment. I made you exchange its right side and its left side. I clothed you in garments of women's power. I put women's speech in your mouth. I put in your hands the spindle and the hairpin. To you, women's adornment. I settled on you the staff and the crook with the shepherd's stick beside them. Maiden Inanna, how have I disparaged you? How can I enhance you? Which him saying that she's perfect. Among the ominous occurrences in the hurly of battle, I shall make you speak vivifying words. In the midst, and in its midst, although you are not an Arabu bird, I always mispronounce it, Arabu bird, I shall make you speak ill-omened words. I made you tangle straight threads. Maiden Inanna, I made you straighten out tangled threads. I made you put on garments. I made you dress in linen. I made you pick out the tow from the fibers or the tow from the fibers. I made you spin with the spindle. I made you color tufted cloth with colored threads. And so here we have a lot of the features of this goddess. The closest parallel I'll draw very quickly is Athena. Athena is the goddess of wisdom. She's the daughter of the greater god, Zeus. Athena is also associated with weaving and garments, and she's also kind of a goddess of the Logos because she's the goddess of wisdom at the beginning. She was born from the mind of Zeus, started, that way. So these are the features, and it's very strange. Why all this focus on threading to do with speaking and to do with the power of this deity? And I'm going to kind of into this. So just going through it again. There. That's Enki. So how water is just flowing out of him because he was the god of wisdom and water. Now, okay, into it. Zeus and Jupiter, which are the same god, but again, and this is Ptah. Now, Ptah again is another root of Deus Ptah, as you can hear, Ptah. Um, and Ptah is actually the root of pater, which is where we get paternal from. So father. So that's why these gods are the sky fathers. As well, Greek is theta alpha. So earlier on, it would have been pronounced pata. H is aspirated, but later on, it would have been phi is th, theta is th, and then alpha a. So it would have been father. And it's where we get father from. Um, that's not the only language that turned the P into an F in some fashion. Um, yeah, quite interesting. But this is just how syncretism and names work. All right. So let's go back to Inanna. Oh, Inanna is also the root of Eve in the Garden of Eden. Just how she was begging Father for wisdom, and Mez, which are seen as these orbs of identifiable thing. She actually, I don't know if it was that ancient text, she snuck into Dilmun, which is equivalent of the Garden of Eden, snuck into Enki and stole it from him, which is similar to Eve stealing of the forbidden fruit of wisdom under the nose of God. So Eve and Inanna are very related. Um, has more syncretisms than most of the gods, many of which are still controversial to proclaim. Speculative until harder archaeological evidence is found. The MO of this goddess is that she is the goddess of normally of love, wisdom, and war. In short, she is the root of Eve in the Bible, Athena, Sophia herself, and the Earth Mother, Gaia, Ea, and all the rest of them, and Cybele and Demeter even. Artemis, it just goes on and on. One of the oldest goddesses in the Sumerian tradition. She's connected to Cybele, which is the first iteration of the Earth Mother. She's believed to be Isis, Neith, Ishtar, Venus, Anahita, and Sarasvati. She's known as the Mother of Gods. Um, uh, Cybele there. Neith, Anahita, the Zoroastrian equivalent of Ishtar, Venus, and Sarasvati. She's known as the Mother of Gods. So when you hear the Mother of Gods, think Inanna. It's also the goddess of the lion, which is till this day why we have two lions on thrones, is directly linked to Kybele or the Earth Mother or Inanna. She's associated with divine speech, wisdom, craft, and weaving. Um, yes, as we saw, she spoke vivifying words. Getting stuck into it. Hold on. There we are. There's Athena. Is also the goddess of wisdom and weaving. Famously, she competed with Arachne, a lesser goddess, competition of weaving, and then Athena turned her into a spider, which is where we get the word arachnid from today. Um, so Inanna is related to goddess in the Sumerian tradition called Utsu, and she's the goddess of the weaving spider. So, what I'm doing here is just strengthening this connection between Inanna and weaving, which is going to be my massive kind of what the Ankh is. And apologize for the AI art here. A lot of the art about this spider grandmother is of Native American origin, which is there's a lot of all the images on the internet are just artists who have drawn it. So there's nothing I can really show you other that isn't covered by copyright. But the spider grandmother weaved the universe into creation. I'd be remiss not to mention the Moirai, if I'm pronouncing that right, in Greek mythology, that weave together fate and sit directly under Ananke, which is the goddess of fate. And you can hear the phonetic similarity of Inanna and Ananke. So she's everywhere. And then the Norns also are the three goddesses which weave together fate. In Inanna's texts, there are many allusions to flax and linen, which are the components, those are the Norns there, flax and linen, which are the main components in woven and threaded goods in ancient times, as well as weaving, binding, yarning, spindling, rope making, and more. All of these are associated with Inanna repeatedly. The first ever depiction of Inanna, this is the weaving process, first ever depiction of Inanna is next to these knots here. They're called the knotted reed bundles. Again, one of the earliest depictions. It's just sitting behind her. There's two long things there. So on this text on the right, it's just as you can see below, it goes, My sister, Inanna, I will bring it to you already retted. I will bring it to you already spun. I will bring it to you already twined. I will bring it to you already warped. So there's just a bit of evidence that there's a lot of weaving associations with Inanna. Now, Inanna is known for the sacred knot made of reeds, as you can see here, and it's a very enduring symbol. So that's what it looks like there. That's the main depiction of it, the oldest and main depiction of the knot of Inanna. And it is believed to be the inspiration of the Minoan knot that looks strikingly similar. Many scholars believe it to be an adaptation of this knot and older knot of Inanna. Later knots emphasize the strands where the knot is, emphasizing the kind of straps of it. So let's just have a look here. That's the Minoan knot. And this is another depiction of the Minoan knot. And as you can see, it's starting to resemble the Ankh there. This is Ma'at, the goddess of truth. And it's believed by many that Ma'at's feather is a rendition or of sorts of the Inanna knot. I couldn't fit in how much this knot is just everywhere, and it tends to be red of all things as well. This is Inanna or Ishtar here, and she's holding two knots in her hand of rope, and they look remarkably similar to the Ankh as well. There it is again, and there she is holding the knot again, and two snakes, which is the origin of the caduceus, is traced back to Inanna as well. As a result, all around the world, we have this kind of sacral knot. It's called the sacral knot, and it tends to be a knot in the middle with a loop above and two coming out with two threads falling beneath it. And it's in Japan. It's called the agemaki knot. Sorry. Many Chinese knots and good luck knots fall in this function, in this form, sorry. So I must repeat that many of these connections are very profound but speculative as well. It doesn't have hard documented evidence behind it. Looking across the numerous hieroglyphs, though, most strikingly similar to this one, and it seems to be a flow on from this knot, is well, before we go into it, this is the threaded band, or also called the girdle of Ramses. And a girdle is like a strap that looks like a shoelace with the two threads beneath and then a loop, as we said. And it's a big mystery in Egyptology of what this means, what it is, and what it functioned as. But this is the Tiet, and it looks, as you can see, remarkably similar to the Ankh.
You,
Uh,
you got that from our presentation, didn't you?
no, I would love to. I was
Just
sorry.
it's the same one that we use for
Oh my God! Oh, I'm swear to you,
that
yeah.
is hilarious.
Look at
So
that.
good. Serendipitous.
Just for context, Anthony here did a incredible talk on the what's it called? The various different, I guess you call them gemstones, but I wouldn't confine it to gemstones. The properties relating to the seven rays. And what was this one? What stone was this made out of?
This one
It
was
was something very soft, like a very
no,
carvable
no, no. So this one was made out of jasper.
jasper. Oh, incredible. No, this is a beautiful image of it, but there's many depictions of this knot. It's virtually indistinguishable from the Ankh, except for the arms fall floppy, and it's called the knot of Isis. Now, Isis again is another goddess associated with Inanna. So, Neith, goddess, another great goddess, and then seen as the mother who birthed all. And she's seen as in the folklore, because I couldn't find a single text which verified this, but I saw so many Egyptologists and sites and sources allude that Neith spoke or weaved the world into creation. She weaved the world. But I couldn't find a single actual text which verified this. So I'm going to respect the folklore around it. But I couldn't find anything on Neith being a goddess of weaving. But she's a very significant goddess in tradition. So, yes, the folklore says she wove the universe into creation, is the mother of gods. She's believed to be inspired by Inanna. She's equated with Isis in many ways. She was initially a goddess in the shroud in which Blavatsky named her book, The Veil of Isis, after the publishers later renamed her works to Isis Unveiled. There we go. So that's the veil. That's a terrible image of the statue of the veil of Isis. But originally in the inscription, it's underneath the garment, the shroud. But it's actually, I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but it was originally called the Veil of Isis. But I think publishers renamed it this unveiled because there was already a workout prior to it called the Veil of Isis or lifting the veil of Isis. So one of the hieroglyphs of Neith's name is the weaving loom, and this is why people make the association of her with weaving. And she's also in possession of the Ankh. Neith also appears as the weaver of destinies, determining the fates of gods and men, much like in the other religions with the Moirai and the Norns. The veil of Neith, the shrouded garment that conceals her face, became a potent symbol of mystery in the late Egyptian and Hellenistic philosophy. The veil represented the hidden fabric of reality, the truth behind appearances that mortals cannot yet unveil. And quite incredible. Big fan of what's it called? A whole symbolism of the veil of Isis. I love that Blavatsky made a book around that. So, R2 is famous for breathing life into Osiris for his resurrection. And in some texts, very strangely, she created Ptah, which is one source I find. I never found a text which verified that, but I found it an interesting statement. So the name of the knot that we're discussing is called the girdle, something you may have heard of before if you read a lot of ancient stuff, but I'll be honest, I read it in a lot of texts and didn't know what a girdle was, but it is a strap or a knotted garment that's like a rope or sash of some sort that you wear. Either men wear it in war and women wear it for birthing, among many other things. And many other kind of garments and sashes are believed to be related to it. On the screen, you can see the red headband. If you look, it actually makes the shape of an arc. The loop is goes around her head, then it has a little arm that goes past her ear, which presumably is on the other side of her head, and then the leg that which goes vertically down the back of her head. That's the shape of an arc there. So the arc is mimicking, other the arc is mimicking the shape of a girdle. It's a three-dimensional structure as opposed to a two-dimensional flat thing. So as I've written here, it goes around the waist. It has two shoelace like strings. A clearer way of picturing it is, like I said, like a shoelace. So the girdle is deeply sacred. It's in many ancient traditions. And I'm covering the Iliad at the moment. They're talking about it every 5 minutes. Someone was stabbed through the girdle and stuff like that. And I'm like, what's a girdle? And then I find out this is what it is. Strongly associated with Ishtar. I just want to see if I've included Ishtar here. Nope, that's all right. The goddess of the girdle knot is called Tayet, very close to Tiet, and this is her here. And she's holding these two girdle linen straps that again are red, and they form very similar to the shape of the Ankh. As you can see, the Ankh isn't one leg running underneath it, it's two straps, as is depicted here, right? Where she's holding the Ankh there. It's two straps with a knot in the middle. Anyway, so he's bearing the two ropes, and much can be said of this goddess Tiet. She's quite interesting.
What's going on? What's going on the previous slide? Was she trying to feed the Ankh to the other person?
That's Osiris, and this is after he was torn to shreds by Set, and she assembled Set, cleaved them up into many parts and body parts around the world, and Isis went to reassemble them and then breathe, and then as you can see here, she's using an arc. She breathed life back into him temporarily, mated with him to birth Horus. And so Osiris is a dying and rising god as well. And he's the Egyptian equivalent of Dionysus, who in one source, Dionysus was also shredded into pieces by I think the Titans cleaved Dionysus up into many pieces, and Zeus revived him as well. And Dionysus is a dying and rising god. So you could call
There's a connection where Athena is the one that breathes life into Dionysus as well.
Yes, Athena, when Prometheus created humanity, Athena was the one that sparked life into them. And that's so symbolic. Wisdom is the thing, or really the mother goddess gave the life to the divine son. But yeah, this is great stuff. This is exactly what we're about to get into. So, as you can see here, a common plea from Egyptians' defeated foes to the king was, "Do not take away the breath of life from our noses." So, the Ankh here is seen as something that interacts with the breath of life. You might be talking about knots and girdles. Why are we talking now about the breath? We'll synthesize these together. This makes the gods and the king the ultimate dispensers of life in ancient Egypt. So here's a few more sources in Genesis. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed life into his nostrils, and the breath of life, and man became a living being, and he breathed into his face the breath of life. That's later in Genesis. Prometheus fashioned men from water and earth, clay. The Hebrew word for clay is Adamah, which is why we get the first man is Adam. And Athena breathed spirit, pneuma, into them. Pneuma, sorry. In Plutarch's De Esse et Osiridae, I think it sounds Latin, I don't know if it is. Isis did not surrender herself to grief, but sought his body, gathered the parts, and by sacred art, this is very important. The sacred art and the words. This is the whole thesis, right? Breathed life into him for a short time. I'll just spoil it now. I believe the Ankh is a symbol for the sacred art, that art being weaving, and why weaving relates to words, about to go into. In Sanskrit as well, prana means breath and life force. This is many here might know that better. Breath, prana is seen as like life itself. So the ancients, sorry, one moment. Sorry about that. Thought I heard a knock on the door. So the ancients tied breath and life to the tongue and speech. This is what I'm getting at. They believe that our words flow from our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which all come from the heart. So, heart is the center of life, and words or the tongue is an agent of the heart. And I'll show you the exact texts which verify this. One of the texts is arguably the most significant text in Egyptology, one of them, the Shabakta stone, and it's a very enigmatic text, which not a lot of people understand the interpretation of. So here on the screen we have the twisted flax. It's a double helix coiled hieroglyph, and it means infinity or eternity. And it, to me, is very Ankh-like. And if we're seeing the Ankh, or the bottom half of an Ankh, the one way I visualize it is that it's coiled together. It looks like a loosed, coiled together rope with a loop at the end. So this is called a twisted flax, sorry, very important. Now, this is another text from Inanna. Inanna, lady throughout heaven and earth, who knows from you the intentions of your heart and those great matters. So Inanna knows the heart. All heaven trembles at your word, a double-twined thread which cannot be separated. Your father Enlil has given this to you. It's Enki, but in different traditions, different places. Sometimes they put Enlil as the great god, sometimes they put Enki. But the same thing, the great father gave the wisdom to. So here we have again the thread, the word, and life all together in the same section. The mention of the double twine thread here is really interesting. I see this as the great speaking of the divine word, which is what I'll get to in a minute. So this double twine thread, or a double twine thread, I'm not saying that the one spoken about in Inanna is the same one that we're talking about. It's just a very interesting overlap, is a hieroglyph in Ptah's name, which would make sense because it's a eternity and Ptah is the great heavenly father. In the Egyptian mythology, very funny, Ptah speaks the world into creation. He's one of the main cases of logos, or what people draw back to when we look at John, the first part of John, when in the beginning the word was with God, logos. People say this is Ptah, God speaking the world into creation. So he's said to speak the world into creation through aligning his heart and tongue. And there are many allusions to this in hymns, which I regret that I didn't put in here. I do have one to show you that it does exist, but there are so many other hymns which just perfectly say what I'm saying. and it's just a direct source, which is verify it, tongue and heart. In one of the hymns, it's like a repeated part at the end of every sentence that Ptah thought this with his heart, and so he spoke it with his tongue. And then there's another thing. He thought this with his heart, and then he spoke it with his tongue. So there's the connection with the heart and tongue. So I'm saying here, Ptah draws the link between speech and life. Speech is the flavorings of the heart upon the breath. So it's the breath animated with life. And it's the only thing that humans can do. That's why humans are touched by the divine. We've been given the gift of speech, both the breath and the heart. The weave is the symbol of the articulated speech. That's what the weave or the girdle or the tying together represents. That's why it's an art which Inanna and Athena perfected and embodied the art of weaving. That's why it's associated with wisdom, because weaving is orchestration of, as we saw in the beginning, tangled threads into untangled threads before about how she has the divine speech. Speech is an organization and ordering of the chaotic world into a coherence.
So was it, and it was weaved in 7 days. And that relates to your, actually, it's interesting that relates to the double helix because there's seven spires in one strand of DNA.
I didn't include this for reasons of time, but there's another one where the girdle was wrapped around. Let me go ahead and find it. The girdle was wrapped around Inanna. There it is. Now it's fragmented, so these clay tablets are damaged, and they just put dot in on the parts where it's damaged. So Inanna had gone through the heavens. The Inanna dot the loincloth girdle of the seven divine powers over her genitals. The girdle of the seven divine power of her genitals. It says, it repeats, and it's like the seven divine powers relating to the birth of Inanna or the birthing of Inanna. It's very interesting. Again, the whole seven thing just runs so old, it's insane. So anyway,
It was like I think they're alluding to the fact that there was some sort of deeper understanding about the intrinsic nature of seven in our DNA, creation of life, or maybe they may have had something to do with the creation of our intelligent being. But that's another discussion.
perhaps. I'm a big fan of the very controversial belief that constant like the caduceus and the twining or the double helix is something to do with DNA. Obviously, it's preposterous to say that they knew, but I think it's incredible.
Impossible. Couldn't have possibly engineered us.
Now, what's funny is that the word for reed in Hebrew is pishta, and the word for threaded flax or wick, which is the thing right there in Ptah's name, is ptil. And the Mandaean force of creation is Ptahil. Very insane set of coincidences that I don't think are that coincidental. By the way, that where Ishtar is holding up that kind of caduceus, that's the oldest caduceus I think I've ever found, if it is, which is incredible. Now, a very funny quick thing as well. This is the Jed pillar, and it's said to be the vertebrae. That's what it represents, is the backbone. Notice in S24 there, that vertebrae is very similar to Ankh there, right? The middle of the Ankh. But it's actually a vertebra and the girdle. So that middle part is the symbol for the girdle. It's a symbol for the girdle. And there it is in the Ankh, right? So the Jed pillar, as you can see here at the top, threads are running down, and then at the bottom, they're running horizontal. And I found this very interesting thing. Just I was looking into this theory about weaving. It's all to do with weaving and twining. And I found that if you look at their weaving practices, it looks remarkably similar to a jade pillar. And there are many depictions of this as well. And again, the threads are moving downwards. There's the separating kind of rods. And then at the bottom, the threads are running, what's it called, horizontal, which I find very interesting. And then as well, there are depictions of it. It's very old practice. When you look at the rope making and weaving practices, they would get a crossbar. Look on the far right of the page, a crossbar, and they will put it in between two double helixed ropes, double twine ropes, and they would twist the crossbar to make the rope as taut as possible. And as you can see, it forms again the structure of the Ankh. It's the twining together of two separate strands, almost like the caduceus wrapping and twining around each other, to the separate being unified into one that is stronger. There's a lot of symbolism there. Now, my kind of hypothesis or theory is that, sorry, one moment. Hit Jed Pillar. Now, going back to Ptah, sorry, I'm going to stay on script. He is said to have spoken the world into creation with the power of his tongue and heart, very similar to Inanna. So, what is the Ankh? I believe it to be an amalgam of the processes, the symbol, the description of the Ankh is an amalgam of the processes of weaving. It's the knot of Isis, it's the knot of Inanna, it's the girdle, it's the process of weaving. It's just a very simple tied knot. While the tiet or the knot of Isis might have served other more specific purposes for Inanna, the Ankh just serves as an amalgam of the process of the weave itself. That's my hypothesis or belief as to what the Ankh is. Now, it's a depiction of the sacred knot. It's the artistry combined into one symbol. And why this knot is the symbol, why this knot is the symbol, is because it's the symbol for the mother of all life, which is the root name for Eve. The name for Eve is the mother of all living. I didn't include, there's another really interesting quote of the girdle being wrapped around Inanna. And when she took the girdle off, the entire universe became barren. So there you have the connection of the girdle or the tied knot or the knot of Isis with life, right? Because Inanna needs the girdle in order to sustain life. And then it also is a symbol of weaving and artistry and articulation. And I believe also as well, it's a symbol for speech because it's a symbol of, think about all the words that we can create, like ah, e, u, ah. We weave those sounds over and on top of each other and form words of little packets of meaning. And through this way, language is symbolized by the woven because we weave words together in order to establish meaning. And when we weave them together, we're articulating the heart. This is what I've just interpreted from the ancient texts. What seems to being said with this constant overlap of thread and inanna together, and it's what seems to be talked about as we're about to explore here with Ptah, this overlapping of the heart, which is life, speech and the woven with life as well in the form of the red girdle, which is so enduring in all of these symbols. As well, another funny thing, this here is the symbol of the house of life, also called the scriptorum, and it's the symbol for the place where the Egyptians would write their sacred writings, right? Again, associating the written and spoken word with the threaded symbol or with life itself. So the Shabakta stone transcript, Shabakta stone were the oldest stone tablets in the Egyptian tradition, very famous. It reads here, it is, and by the way, this looks like it's just written on a Word document, but this is from the British Museum, if you can believe it. It's a PDF from the British Museum, and I screen grabbed it. It says, it is Ptah, the very great, who has given all life to the gods through his heart and through his tongue. Sight, hearing, breathing, they report to the heart, and it makes every understanding come forth. As for the tongue, it repeats what the heart has devised. In this way, all the gods were born. I'll reiterate that. As for the tongue, it repeats what the heart has devised. In this way, all the gods were born. For all divine speech, every hieroglyph, right, came through what the heart devised and what the tongue commanded. So script and speech came from the heart. And so all trades were created and all arts and all movements of limbs according to this command devised by the heart came forth from the tongue and created everything. And in this way, Ptah made all and created the gods from whom everything came forth, foods, provisions, divine offerings, and all good things. And so it is recognized and understood that he is the mightiest of the gods. Thus, Ptah was satisfied after he had made all things and all hieroglyphs. Again, I must reiterate that life is associated with the breath, Life is associated with the thread because it's associated with both the arts and it's associated with the girdle, which is the tied reed knot of Inanna. Life is also associated, I think I said, with the breath, with the tongue, speech, because it is imbuing the breath with the meaning of the heart. Now you understand what I was talking about before when you read this, is that the heart is speaking through the tongue. The voice is possessing the breath to imbue the world with its meaning. And words are woven in ways in which it is in the form of an art form. And so that is why the Ankh, the symbol of speech, life, and the word is placed up to the nose because it's breathing life, the divine life in through the nose. I just want to now conclude. I wrote a conclusion, but I think I concluded pretty well there. So, what I'm saying is that the Ankh is the symbol for the divine word, in my opinion. Did I include it here? Nope. The Ankh is a symbol for the divine word, the Logos. I posit, in conclusion, that the Ankh was the Egyptian concept of the Logos. This is why the Ankh was a hieroglyph for the scriptorum, a place where one could write and create language. The symbol of the Ankh upon a building because it is the divine logos of life of which is being written about. And it is called upon by Ptah and Neith in their construction of the world. The Ankh is a symbol of Sophia. It is the logos, articulated speech and divine wisdom and the breath of life. In conclusion, the Ankh is the symbol for divine wisdom itself, the action of turning chaos into order and articulating the world through the heart. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, shoot them my way.
I have a couple. I'll let someone else talk though.
Does anyone else have any questions prior? How's it going? Hey.
Oh, you see me?
Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Great. Glad to hear. Good to see everyone there too. All right. Dylan or James, any words? All good.
I thought that the whole thing was there was a lot in it, but it was woven together very well, and you described a lot of things very eloquently. So it was, no, I loved it. Loved
No,
it
thank
very.
you. Thank you for the little cheeky pun there. No, it was a lot, and there is a lot. It is a hypothesis, of course, but help but talk about it after studying the goddesses. And Anthony,
So, I'd like to go back to that slide, that one there.
this one,
So, whereabouts is the S24 vertebra? Just
on
out.
here. So, do you see my mouse?
So, is it that one? Is it the one that's just at the top there?
This one? Oh no, so this is just a screen grab of things to do with spinal stuff. So
Mhm.
this is on its own. It's not on the Jed pillar. What I'm saying is it's believed that this is the traditional understanding of the Jed pillar is that it represents the spine, represents stability, and this F41 is the actual hieroglyph for the spine.
Mhm.
See, I'm not mad at that theory, right?
Yeah.
It really looks exactly like it. But what I found really profound, really interesting, is that it looks so damn similar as well to the process of weaving the
Yeah.
jade. Not saying it is.
What about the idea potentially that of the Ankh being associated with a thread of like a Kundalini activation? I know this word gets thrown around a lot. However, when you reach a certain level of initiation, it does effectively awaken an aspect of your conscious being, which does effectively connect you to some levels of source consciousness. And so, what do you think about that? The top of the Ankh sitting at the top of your, I forget what the, it's called like the seat of Solomon at the top, just at the cradle of your, between the cranium and the connection of your spinal column
Nape.
and the nape of your neck, that, and then the circle part being a symbol for the awakening or the opening of the activation of the eye.
Look, I'm not. It's the same with what I was talking about with concept creep. I think a powerful symbol has many different meanings. Thing is, like, it's
Not,
possible
not that it has many different, the meaning.
that it was the meaning. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I do like to base it in evidence from multiple sources, and that although I would just need to see a lot of concrete evidence to say that's what it is. For example, why is it put up? If that's what it means, why is it put up to the nose in so many depictions? Like, I would need an answer to that. I'm not discounting it. I
Okay.
personally think good symbol again is a layering of many different meanings, but
I don't know. Maybe the Egyptians put stuff up their nose. I don't know.
That's the thing, right? But it's just like it's just again, so many people have so many different theories about what the Ankh is. In particular, yeah, oh, there was a lot of very strange ones I encountered. I don't like saying what a symbol doesn't represent unless it's something easily debunkable, union between male and female. This one here could, but it's just again, as I said here, it's the phenomena is already explained for. There already exists the symbol, so why would we need to do that? So anyway, but no, it's a good question. It's hard.
That's it. Thanks for your time, bro. Appreciate the presentation. It was very thought-provoking.
And thank you for coming. All right. Any last questions or statements?
No, but I'd just like to see maybe a bit more of what is it, the Caduceus as well? Because I just looked it up on Wikipedia and it's saying it goes back to even like an old Mesopotamian god,
Yeah,
Ningi. Yeah, his weird name. Yeah, that guy.
Ningishzida. Here it is. Ningishzida is the Lord of the Good Tree, and this is what's so profound as well, is that he's a snake god associated with the good tree, which obviously here the parallels with tree of good and evil and such. But you could do. I honestly think after this, I was thinking of revisiting the Caduceus and going into a whole. Oh wait, I did do a talk on it recently at the Perth Lodge. But the way I see it as well, the Caduceus. Have you ever seen in nature or in the internet how snakes reproduce, how they mate is like that. So the caduceus is a symbol of the union between masculine and feminine, of reproduction, of divine feminine and the divine masculine coming together. It coincidentally, as a result of reproduction, what happens in reproduction? The weaving together of your mother's DNA and your father's DNA literally coil together. In Greek mythology, at least in one source, Phanes, the god of all, or the father of the gods, or the primordial giant at the beginning of creation, he was in the Orphic egg. And the Orphic egg is depicted with one snake around it, but if you read the text, there's two snakes around it. And so the caduceus wrapped around Phanes at the beginning of creation, and they crushed the egg, and Phanes come out of it. And those snakes, one of them was Kronos, and the other one was in Ananke, who I referenced before as a parallel of Inanna. So it's so big. And this Ishtar, that seems to be, to me, a caduceus. And I'll admit, I have not seen this before this study. I was like, wow, I didn't know the Caduceus goes back to Inanna. And Ningishzida, you would see it on Wikipedia, is the double-coiled snakes as well, right?
Yep.
So it's crazy. Oh, and then there's in Chinese mythology, you have Fuji and Nuwa. Fuji and Nuwa are also half serpent people, and they're intertwined as well. And one is holding the compass, and the other one is holding the square, which are divine symbols of masculine and feminine curved lines and straight lines overlapping. So the celestial realm, the earthly realm. So it's so deep. It's so incredible.
What about, so have you looked at the work of Stitchin, his interpretations of the Sumerian tablets?
Is Zachariah Sitchin? Yes, not a lot. I haven't read his books or anything, but I know of his conclusions. It's interesting.
Yes. So it's interesting that he says, right, the serpent was the first creature that Enlil uncovered when he arrived, or when they were on Earth, the first creature of curiosity, and the creature was therefore used as a symbol for Enlil that represented him. And so apparently in this text that was transcribed from cuneiform, Enlil was a geneticist, and it's a little bit controversial. Pardon me, sorry. He engineered man from the rib of the monkeys, so similar to the creation story. So he used part of an existing creature that was here and of his own rib, which is an aspect of himself, and then created what we are now in some ways. And his symbol was the serpent because it was the first creature that he found. And so actually, Ishtar was his sister. So
But when it comes to the family relation of Sumerian gods, it's extremely fluid. There's no one canon. For example, Inanna sometimes is the wife of Enki, sometimes the daughter, sometimes they're not related at all. Sometimes Inanna is the daughter of Enlil. But Sitchin's theory, for those who don't know what we're talking about, the Sumerian tradition, the Sumerian clay tablets were deciphered by a guy named Zachariah Sitchin, and he had a theory about the interpretation of these gods, Inanna and so on, being beings from other planets. Very interesting. I tend not to agree with Sitchin, just because there's a lot of other translators out there too with their theories, but it's very interesting. I didn't know that a snake was a symbol of Enlil though.
And Ning Shinzila comes up as well in the Epic of Gilgamesh translation as well. And as does Ishtar again. And Ishtar is like the aunt of Gilgamesh in the epic. It is interesting in the translations. It's a pity most of those were destroyed in the war now. But anyways.
One last thing is for those who missed my serpents talk, interpretation of why the snake is eating its own tail. In certain Greek medicine practices, the snake venom was used as a medicine, and it was used also for psychedelic, snake venom was used for psychedelic exploration, which cured the mind, right? And so the way that they viewed medicine was something that killed your illness. So your illness is killing you, and you take the medicine which kills the thing that's killing you. And the irony of using snake venom is that it both heals you and kills you. The symbol for medicine or the serpent is the snake is eating its own tail because it's killing what is killing, right? It's a loop of some sort. And that's why the Ouroboros is eating its own tail. So very fascinating. And whole snake venom practices was contradictory. It was like snake venom would kill you. It was used to kill, but it was also something that would heal you, like a backwards law.
But they use the same, a similar sort of poison arrow to induce states of psychosis in native South American rituals, shamanic rituals.
Absolutely. That's it. They use snake venom to heal and snake venom to harm. But thank you all for that. That completes the symbol of the Theosophy logo. We covered it all. We covered as above, so below, the Ouroboros, and now the Ankh. So thank you all once again. And I think we'll conclude there unless anyone has any last shots. But all right, we'll conclude there. So thanks again once for joining. And I'll upload this to YouTube after a little bit of editing. And come along to our future events. Stay tuned in our group chat to see future events coming. We have a debate coming up soon as well, and also a trivia night. So come along to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll see you guys later.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
No worries. Bye.